Thank you. It's great to be here and see so many old friends and also new faces. Shelley suggested that we bring ethos water to our presentations, so hopefully that will help me out here. So this was advertised as being about the new book in the series, which is going to be about Ben Jonson. But really what I want to do is talk to you about the whole Brief Chronicles book series, which is published by the Shakespeare Oxford Fellowship, because I think we have a lot of useful materials that I would like to see us put to greater use. So my first slide is just going to talk about the three goals of the series. So the first goal is to provide scholarship, quality scholarship on the authorship question in books that cover specific topics, drawing from the more than 10,000 articles and books on the subject, especially but not only by Oxfordians. And a second goal was to make Edward de Vere's poems, hopefully all of them, and when I say all of them, please take that in a relative sense. There's a lot of poems, I think, by him that are floating around out there, and I don't know if there ever will be a comprehensive collection, but at least most of them, to make them more widely available. As we know, the Stratfordians like to tell us that he couldn't have been Shakespeare because he was a terrible poet. Well, it turns out this is just nonsense, and that actually de Vere's poetry is the juvenilia of the man who eventually would write these great plays. And the third issue is to provide a coordinated series of books on specific authorship-related topics. So let me, before I go on, thank Lucinda Folk for her amazing design contributions to all of these books. These are the first two books on Oxford's poems. Now, originally when I set out to do a book on Oxford's poetry, I thought I would do one book, and then I realized that it had to be two books, and then I looked at those two books and I said, oh no, this is like not the way to do this. As a result of that process, which was happening during COVID, and in fact, I was communicating with Tom Renier by email when he was in the hospital dying of COVID about this matter. There was not the best communication between myself and the board about this, and I want to thank them for coming up with the funding for these first two books. But I'm going to show you the three more books that have not been published, and briefly talk about why they needed to be separated out. The second one that you see here, the first one, the canonical poems, just includes the poems that pretty much everyone agrees are by him. The second book are the poems from Passionate Pilgrim, which Catherine Children and others have argued are, at least a group of them, 20 of them, and I agree with this assessment, are definitely by Shakespeare or by Edward de Vere, as we would say. So let's see, is there a way to, how do I scroll down on this? Okay, I think that's enough on that slide. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of problem. Here we go. Okay, so these are the three other books that I would like to include in the series. These are ready for publication, but they need a little bit of polishing. And as you can see, they deal with different issues. So the third one is the songs from John Lyly's plays, which were not published in his plays. Loney, in 1924, already pointed out this anomaly and suggested that they are Oxford's songs. And so this is a book devoted solely to looking at that particular collection. As it turns out, the middle title page here, two of the most prolific lyric poets of the Elizabethan age were named Shepherd Tony and Ignato. And to this day, neither one of them has convincingly been identified with any real writer. So this would be the only collected edition of all of the poems of Ignato and Shepherd Tony, of which, let's see, I got the numbers here, 32 poems in all, including a number of longer poems. And then the final book that you see here is a miscellaneous grab bag of lots of other short poems, some of them written as dedications to other works of literature. This is an important anomaly, folks. In the Elizabethan age or in the Jacobean age, if you were a poet, part of your vocation was that you would write poems to the works of your fellow poets. You write dedicatory verses praising them. Shakespeare, once again, is the great exception to this. He never did it. There is not a single dedicatory poem by Shakespeare to anybody else. How about that for something that the Stratfordians really should answer for? So that's the poems. So there are three other books that I want to talk to you about that we've already done. The first one is this Shakespeare Authorship source book that came out in 2002. Lucinda took an idea for the cover that I had come up with and made it really beautiful and snazzy and crisp. This is a 490-page book with 35 articles. And the purpose here is to provide something that would be useful to high school students or even in a college class, a collection of some of the best articles that we have. This covers Bacon, Marlowe, Stanley. Pardon? Oops. Sorry, I didn't go. I'm confusing what I'm supposed to be talking about here. Okay, so is this it? Yeah, okay. It's got a bunch of interesting visual materials and research resources, and I'll show you a couple examples of those. And it does include material on Bacon, Marlowe, and Stanley, as well as de Vere. There are 30 contributors, including Professor Stanley Wells. I understand he's not too happy at being included in this. I intended to include some other Stratfordian essays. I made an interesting discovery, which is that if you want to reprint many articles by Stratfordians in a book like this, $3,000 is probably what you're going to spend for one article. These publishers and the people writing for them have grossly overvalued their own work. And I guess that works for them because they don't have to appear in books like this where their work has to be can be measured against the work that some of us are doing. In addition, and again, I'll show you a couple examples, there are 63 quotations from Shakespeare doubters and many questions for further research. So this is just the first of several pages of the table of contents, and I wanted to draw attention to this particular article right here by Robert Barrett Jr. He has passed away, but for over 10 years, Bob Barrett taught a course on he taught Shakespeare to ninth graders at a public high school in Bremerton, Washington, in which he fully integrated the authorship question. He did not have enough seats for that class. It was a thing you had to apply, and there was always twice as many students who wanted to take it as were available. I should also mention here, so the idea is to reproduce exceptional articles that otherwise might go without notice. And another article I don't have on a slide here, but Professor Felicia Landre's Hamlet as Autobiography, which was originally published by the Bulletin of the Faculty of Letters at the University of Hosei in Japan. I probably messed up the pronunciation there, sorry, in the 1990s. So unless you happened to be one of those people who got a rare off-print of that article, you wouldn't even know that it exists. And yet she is a distinguished art historian who has published books on Love's Labour's Lost and is very widely respected as an academician and a scholar. I mentioned the doubters. So this is one of my favorite ones, is Keanu Reeves. I debated whether to include this. Why? Because I know the way we get treated. And I know what the Stratfordians are going to say here. Well, he's not really a Shakespearean actor. No, he's not, but he's a smart guy. And I don't know if you can read. You can't read probably. This has got something over 12 million views on YouTube. And let's see. Let me see if I can read it here. So question, if you could time travel to any time period, when would it be and why? Answer: I have always wanted to know, growing up, who really wrote the plays of Shakespeare. So I want to be there at that moment when Shakespeare is writing Hamlet, because I don't think it was William Shakespeare. I'm an Edward de Verean. I think de Vere wrote the plays. And the other example here is really quite extraordinary. Is anybody, who's heard of Guillaume Apollinaire? Okay, great. We're in a very educated group, so some of you know. I did not know who he was, but he's one of the most important founders of surrealism, a theorist of surrealism. Again, he was with us, which you wouldn't think, at least I wouldn't think, but wow, you know, smart people from all different persuasions get attracted to our issue. So we have everything in this book from Delia Bacon, who is here shown in a beautiful photograph of her with a quotation from Walt Whitman, who called her, said that her critics were a bunch of overfed, dainty statists who never had an original thought in their mind. And on the other image here, we see John Shahan's and Alexander Waugh's Shakespeare Beyond Doubt, responding to this book published by Cambridge with Joseph Fiennes on the cover. I don't know if they asked his permission. I kind of think they might not have, which declares that Shakespeare is beyond doubt. So these materials are included as part of their exercises here. There's a challenge for students to look at these two title pages and, you know, ask themselves, well, which one of these is a more scholarly approach to the question? Do you say this is what it was, or do you say, well, we don't know for sure. It's an open question. What do you think? I'm just going to quickly go past this because I think I've got too much material here, but these are a few title pages that are arranged. And again, the challenge is to look at these. This is the first of 2 pages with these title pages. Do the title pages tell us anything about the authorship question? And I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to invite you to get a copy of the book and look at it and think of that yourself. One of many research aids that are in here is Bill Boyle's website, which the New England Oxford Library, which is available online. There are, I did a test, there are 49 references to Charles Wisner Burrell in this database, most of which are now available in complete articles. So this is a wonderful resource for us. You probably don't know that Walt Kelly was a Shakespeare aficionado, and I actually think that he may well have been an Oxfordian. If you look at this example, he references the Shakespeare authorship question in multiple ways. And in this one, he says, the conversation is, listen to this, probably the best singing commercial ever wrought. What have I got to lose besides my mind? Your good name. You could lose your good name. Who steals your mind steals trash. And then Owl says, who steals my purse steals trash, not my mind. So I thought, if he wasn't an Oxfordian, he certainly knew how to speak to us, 75 years later, and our experience. The third book here is Shakespeare and the Law, and I put the Amazon price. I hope Amazon is not undercutting us, but the point I want to make here is a general one. These books are inexpensive because this organization has committed to making these quality materials available at a pretty low cost. So there are several books in print on Shakespeare and the Law. This is the only one that talks about this in relationship to the authorship question and points out that there is a connection between those two things. And you can buy it on Amazon for under $15. This book is dedicated to Tom Renier. I asked Tom at least 3 times while he was alive if he would work with me to do a book on Shakespeare and the Law. He never said no, but he never said yes. So I filled some of the loss in myself in losing him by doing this book. And as you can see, this is a table of contents here. We got about a dozen really distinguished contributors, and including Justice Stevens. And I'll point to a couple other things that are in this book. If I had to pick one article to assign to students as an aspect of Shakespeare and the law, it would be this article by Mark Alexander called History, what is it called? Shakespeare's Law, A Journey Through the History of the Argument. And this is a marvelous article. He goes in great detail and shows how the issue of Shakespeare's legal knowledge has never been separable from the authorship question. They've always been integrated. The third book of this series that we've published is the first folio on the authorship question. This came out in the 400th anniversary of the publication of the 1623 first folio, and is designed as the antidote to the official Shakespeare industrial complex bard washing about how and why the folio, which we know is one of the world's most significant and influential books, was published. And we just saw a wonderful presentation from Bonner Cutting. That material is not in here, but what is in here, among other things, is her article about Lady Anne Clifford's library. And this painting here she is the second wife of Philip Herbert Montgomery, then Earl of Pembroke, who of course was married before that to Edward de Vere's daughter, Susan. And this is her library in the painting. And Bonner goes through and notes all the books that are here. Guess what book is not here that you would expect should be here? The book written by the father of her husband's previous wife. How about that for a little real raw human reality here? The other slide here is a Welsh poem written by Henry Salisbury in a Welsh lyric tradition, which is about Hemmings and Condell. The Stratfordians really don't like this poem at all. Let me come down and read it for you because I don't have it in my notes here. It says to you...
Take the mic, Roger. Just you get bring the mic.
I'm almost sure. All right, I'm almost done. So, it says, to you that jointly with undaunted pains vouchsafe to chant to us these noble strains. It says they're being chanted. The noble strains are being chanted. How much you merit by it is not said, but you have pleased the living and loved the dead, raised from the womb of earth a richer mind than courtesy with all his Castelline associates. They did but dig for gold, but you for treasure much more manifold. So this is actually an article by Gabe Reedy that will explain to you what is going on here and why the Stratfordians ignore this poem entirely. So now I'm on my second to the last slide. The Ben Jonson book that Lucinda and I are working on right now, this is going to be the cover. It is not available now only because I have, for the last month, spent 3 hours a day working on finishing the Shakespeare allusion book, which some of you know. I have been predicting this book would come out next year for 10 years. I apologize for that. But it will come out this spring. The De Vere Society is ready to publish it in the spring. We are polishing. It's about to go to the indexer. And this is just one of the appendixes, has over 40 commendations of the Earl of Oxford. It's quite extraordinary how strongly his memory has been suppressed and how much his contemporaries expressed over and over again their praise for him. And so I'm sorry, it looks like I'm gone over a little bit, but this is my last slide, if I can get it. Oops, I went past it. Okay, we'll go from here. So what's next? these are some ideas. I would like to do a volume on interpretive Oxfordian essays on specific plays. And these are some of those that I would like to include. And I realized I left off Rima Greenhill's essay on Love's Labor's Lost is also one that should be up here. I would like to put out the final 3 De Vere poems books, and then a couple of other possibilities, a book on the chronology or a book on Oxfordian sources of the plays. I'm interested in your feedback. What would you like to see? What books could be added to these that we already have that would be useful? So I'm hoping that what these books do is they give us a low-cost way so that there should be a book for every situation. You know a lawyer who's curious about this question. Give them a copy of the law book. You know a really talented senior in high school who's interested in this. The source book, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll end with that. Thank you for your attention. If we have any time for questions, or if we don't, you please speak to me later on today. Thank you.